Welcome to the Michigan Golfer Show. Join us each week as we explore the people, the places, and the events that shape our great game.
Hi, I'm Jack Berry, and I'm here at Bloomfield Hills Country Club talking with Mike DeVries for the Great Lakes Sports Productions and the Michigan Golfer on television. Mike is doing a lot of work here at Bloomfield Hills Country Club, and it looks gorgeous. And we first heard about Mike from when the boys were together up in northern Michigan. Tom Doak was just getting into the business, and he hired a couple of young guys, Mike DeVries and Gil Hanse, to work for him, kind of dig out the bunkers and move rocks and twigs and so on and so forth. And that was a while ago.
You know, a lot of times I've just become a good editor after the initial part of getting the hole in the right place the first time. One of the best compliments I've ever got, Eric Iverson, who's worked for me for a long time. I think you might have met him. He played in the opening at High Point. He was on the irrigation crew at High Point 30 years ago. And Eric said, well, you know, building greens in some of these places we're building greens, it's like coming to bat with the bases loaded all the time. You know, you do anything good, it's going to drive in a couple runs. But, you know, especially now, I mean, I've had some tremendously talented people work for me. Gil Hanse and Mike DeVries. Gil Hanse was my first employee. Mike DeVries was my second. Now they're out competing with me for jobs.
Do you remember much of those days, Mike?
It was a long time ago, Jack. 32 years to be exact. Yeah, so shortly after I got married, I met Tom Doak. He was just finishing up High Point, and Gil was actually in school. He was back at school getting his master's, and Tom Mead, who was the superintendent that I worked under for 5 years at Crystal Downs, was running the job for Tom at High Point. And so you know, I was trying to figure out my next mission in life. I figured out the job that I had out of school was not quite what I wanted to do, and I went back to golf, and lo and behold, here's this new project happening. So I didn't know Tom Doak. I went over, met him, of course knew Tom Mead, and Andy and I went on our honeymoon, camping for 2 months out west. Everyone thought we were crazy. We're still married, so it's good. And I came back and helped them finish up High Point, and then I went down to Myrtle Beach and did the Heathland course with Tom Doak down there, and learned that's how I really learned about the business, and learned about construction and all those types of things, and installing drainage and things. And then the Black Forest is really when the three of us were kind of together. So I came back up and I ran the job. Tom obviously was the designer and doing a lot of shaping and stuff on the greens and things like that. And then Gil had finished up his degree, and he came on and did a lot of the shaping and things like that. So it was a magical kind of, you know, fun sort of thing. We were talking about golf shots and how to build this and how to build that, and, you know, this is really cool. How can we do this? And it was fun.
You've been rather successful, all three of you.
We have done well, yeah. No, it's and we, you know, we're all pretty close in age. We're not that far apart in age, and got into it. And, you know, I really give Tom Doak a lot of credit for, you know, bringing us on and teaching us about things. And, you know, that's the way he learned from Pete Dye, and you know, we learned from him, and so it goes.
Well, you had Tom Fazio too. You worked for Tom, didn't you?
Did after my grad work. So after the Black Forest, we didn't have another project right away, and I went back to school and got my master's in landscape architecture at the University of Michigan. And shortly after that, when I finished that, I worked for Tom Fazio for about 15 months. They needed somebody on site, and that's not something they did at that time. It was a kind of a specialized thing. So that was another great experience. And then since then, you know, Tom's been doing his thing, and Gil's been doing his thing, and I've been doing my thing, and we run into each other at the airport maybe.
Yeah, Tom just had the Houston tournament for the tour, and Gil had the winged foot. Gil, this is your first time in Michigan, 1991. You remember you were with Tom Doak and DeVries of the Black Forest?
Black Forest, yes.
What was that like then?
Well, I had the worst mustache in golf at that time. I think was really, we actually, Tracy, my wife and I, we spent 2 tours up in northern Michigan. We, when I was in school, we worked at High Point and lived in Traverse City, right behind a Kentucky Fried Chicken. I can still smell that to this day in Top Age, in a great spot. And then we were in Gaylord, working at Black Forest. I think it's fun now to look back on projects like that. I think Long Cove in South Carolina, where Pete Dye had, Bill Coor, Bobby Wheat, Tom Doak, P.B. Dye. I mean, all these guys were on the crew there. And I think at some point in time, maybe somebody will look back in history and say, wasn't that a pretty special time? You had Tom Doak, Gil Hanse, Mike DeVries all working together on one project. And the dynamics of it were great. I mean, I learned a ton from Tom. Obviously, he worked for Pete Dye, so everything kind of stems from that tree. But that's where I actually learned to run a bulldozer, was at Black Forest. There was an old guy up there who taught me how to do it, and I spent almost the entire summer on it. I was on one this morning before I had to go set up on my second shower today. I had to go clean up. So I think that's part of that project is obviously something that stayed with me for almost 30 years now.
No tournaments for me yet.
Well, you're sticking with ones that people love to play.